Welcome. It is MNFT Freedom episode number 20. Can you believe it's 20 episodes already, Rochelle?
No, I
Crazy.
can't. 20 weeks of consistency, buddy. It is definitely exciting for me. Um, all the progress that we've made, and why does it seem like when you're grinding away and nothing is moving, you look up and everything is moving so fast and you're running behind the train? Because that's what
Oh
it
my
felt like
gosh.
this week.
I hear you. That's been my last 2 weeks is like I feel like I haven't stopped moving, but I feel like I'm so behind. So yeah, I'm with you. But tonight we on episode 20 we have a special guest. We have Will with Kingfisher's Media. Welcome, Will. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate the time and the space as always. Great to meet you. I have a relationship with Rochelle, and privileged and honored and blessed to be here and kind of share what we're up to with Kingfisher's Media.
Nice. So awesome, Rochelle.
Yes, here's the thing. We're episode 20, and it was this amazing individual that I just marched up to in Miami and go, I have a crazy idea. What do you think? And he goes, go for it. And here we are, right? Here we are.
Nice.
He was the first person that I went to, and I said, well, love talking to you. We both share that passion for educating and uplifting our communities, right? And I want to take this on. What do you think? Is it too huge? Do you think it's even possible? And that's all he said was, listen, go for it. I'm here to support you. And here we are, episode 20. Scott, this is so huge for me.
This is big. We're pushing a half a year, 6 months almost.
Yes,
We're a month
sir.
and a half away. So that's exciting, right? Um, but yeah, how are you doing this evening, Rochelle? Because I think you're doing
I'm
pretty
over the
well.
moon. I'm like a kid. I tell you what, well, and you're feeling the same thing, right? Because now you know all the work that goes into Mint. You know all the work, and being the project manager that I've been on several different projects, I know the grind to get you to Mint Point, and at Mint Point, that's when you go, whoo, I can exhale now. That's not true. That's when you ramp up even more, right?
Yep.
Um, and that's kind of like where we're at. And I'm so excited to talk to you about your Mint, the Access Pass, how that's going to play out, because it aligns so strongly with both my passion and purpose to what we're bringing to the city of New Orleans, right? It's one thing to talk about educating someone on a topic, right? But how do you support them? And you and I both identified that's the major lack with any type of digital economy conference that they're showcasing now. So it's just that one time event, very few follow up, and then now my eyes are open to the potential of Web3, but I have no access, no resources. How do I follow up? That is just a little too complicated for me. I need to start at basic step one, and listening to your educational content that you put out on a regular basis, and really meeting people where they're at with their knowledge base. I'm super excited for you, buddy.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's true what you say, right? So going in the Mint, especially when you're working with a small team, you form marketing strategies, you form like communities you're going to align with and where you're going to have the conversations. But then when you go to Mint, you got to kind of ramp up those efforts by 2, 3, 4 times in most cases. So it is a lot of effort. I will admit that. But you know what? I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge and I'm ready for action. So let's go.
There you go. Awesome. So, Will, I mean, tell us a little bit about what you're building and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me set the stage and the framework for this conversation, because I think it's really important that people get to know me as a founder, but also a community member of no less than a dozen communities. So yeah, let's start there. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
All right. So in 2020, March 2020 to be exact, I took a leap of faith from a 26-year career in the private sector, spanning retail, contact centers, business strategist, worked in the telecom industry, worked in the healthcare industry, worked in the solar industry. I took a leap of faith and I started my own company and started researching blockchain technology. That being said, I was on an island all by myself doing my own research, vetting out my own news services, vetting out my own people in the industry who were like top level to pay attention to and really listen to what they had to say, right? So then about 7 months in, I got introduced to a community that is now known as the Social Bees DAO. We've not always been called that, but that's the current characterization that resonates with most people when I have these types of conversations. Through that community, I learned a lot about the mechanics with decentralized finance and all the intricacies and nuances of it. Then about 18 months into that journey, we decided, non-fungible tokens, or as I like to explain them, digital collectibles or digital access passes, depending on their form and function, really were starting to take off. And there was a lot of energy and a lot of emotional support around these in a positive direction. So we did our own research. We figured out what made the communities tick. We came together as a community and we said, you know what, we can do this. We're strong enough, we can do this. So we launched our own project known as Social Bees University. It was an amazing experience. I learned a lot from it. And then, shortly after that, we formed as a decentralized autonomous organization, which is just basically a fancy way of saying, hey, you're a community, you can operate independent of external influences, and you have some sort of organizational structure to it, right? So since then, there have been several community efforts where we've been exploring technology with engaging people in conversations, primarily Twitter Spaces. And for those that don't know Twitter Spaces, it is an amazing extension of the platform where you can get involved in conversations with a room as small as 10 to 12 people to rooms that have several thousand people in them, and really tap in and lean into the conversations that are being had, especially around the blockchain industry. That being said, I was inspired through that effort to, based on the fact that in our community-led efforts with the Social Bees University, every item that we collected from there, we own the commercial IP rights for it. So we could do with it whatever we wanted to from a commercial IP licensing perspective. So I acquired one that resonated with education. And at the time, I wasn't necessarily focused on education. I mean, I was, because the community was, but that wasn't my sole emphasis in this space, if that makes sense. So I took one of those, I curated it into a brand. I started learning about brand management, brand assets, brand kit, brand recognition, brand strategies, everything that goes into that. And then using my platform, which has been established for over 15 months now, called Kingfisher's Corner, I turned that to where we are today into an actual business model. And so that business model looks like Kingfisher's Media. And what Kingfisher's Media is emphasized on is we inspire, we excite, we educate, and we really motivate people to learn and educate themselves through our platform about not just blockchain technology, but any emerging technology that's coming to the forefront right now that's on the leading edge, but also topics of interest that aren't traditionally taught in the standardized educational model, even in specialized fields. Some of the topics that we cover from a content perspective, from a course curriculum perspective, are not really well educated. So we saw this gap in the system, and knowing what we know about blockchain technology, we thought that we could provide a very viable solution to this.
Nice. So that is kind of what Rochelle is building, right? Is educating the lack thereof in our education system. Educating on financial freedom. On money, on the mindset behind all that. And that is the passion behind the conference that we're putting together, right?
100%. I had somebody early on in this week with our meeting going well, you know, and we were discussing the app for MNFT, and they're like, "Well, we're doing something similar." I said, "Listen, here's the thing. I believe competition is healthy, but this is not about competition. A truly beautiful thing about Web3, it's about community. It's about togetherness. It's about those options that we were denied in the traditional sense. So it's not about competition. The fact that if I can offer a specific course content and I have access that someone else who's building in this space that's offering education as well and are in my circle of influence, who kind of believe the same business philosophy that I do, that we lead first with integrity, absolutely, I want to be here to support him,
Yep.
right? I've seen Will showing up. I mean, it's just not talking the talk, but it's actively showing up and supporting in Twitter spaces, in real life at events, sharing the knowledge that he's gathered. So I am here for all of it. That's the beauty of it. It takes us all. It takes the village. When we look at our kids now coming up, and looking at the disparity right now in the economics, and looking at the disparity with what do you do with this college education that you're now on the hook for the rest of your life, paying that student loan, and you're still just living paycheck to paycheck. I saw some stats that said people are earning as much as $320,000 a year as a couple are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And I was just blown away by that number, right? So any opportunity to help educate anyone on the potential they have to level up, to upskill, I'm here for all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and Rochelle, I mean, you make a very good point there, right? So in our circles that we run in, we don't view so much as competition, right? If we're moving in the same direction with a similar emphasis, we view it as collaboration. So there's a saying that rings true called collaboration over competition.
Absolutely. And
Love that.
it's amazing that we look at, you know, different people and their different lifestyles and, what living paycheck to paycheck means for each of them. And, someone who's making 320 grand a year, they may be living paycheck to paycheck because their standards are on a different level, right? They might have gotten that house that is, a, I don't know, 750,000 to $1 million house, right? And have a mortgage on that. They might have two really nice cars that they were making payments on. Where you go to someone who's making that 40 to $60,000 a year, and they're in the same situation, living paycheck
Yeah.
to paycheck,
Yeah.
just on a smaller scale, right? So it's the same deal. It's the same, ratio of house and auto loans or personal loans or things of that nature that have them tied down to that week to week or paycheck to paycheck mentality. And how do you break that? You think with making 320 grand a year combined might be easy, but in their situation, it's just as difficult as it is for the person who's making 40 grand a year.
Well,
Now,
it's the loss of that education, which is why I'm super excited by a lot of the things coming out on the blockchain,
yep.
right? If you're talking about providing me a quality education, providing me access to the tools and resources to get that certification necessary to be employable in the new digital economy,
Mhm.
with not even 25% of the cost of existing educational standards, that becomes a big difference in how that $320,000 a year gets spent, because
Well,
I'm not allocating 25 to 30% of it back to paying a college loan, right?
right. And the difference, though, between those two, examples is the people that are making $320,000 a year have more options than the people that are making less because of the situation they're in.
Hmm.
Possibly,
True.
possibly.
True. And I
Uh,
say to really talk about when we strip away the barriers that are in place to keep us from bonding,
mhm.
we realize that there's so much more that binds us together than what separates us. Well, um, and the absolute beauty of your access pass comes right down to, and again, the beauty of the blockchain, right? Where we don't care where you come from, we don't care your socioeconomic background, we don't care your culture, we don't care your religion, we don't care your politics. What we get together, what we vibe on in our community, is how we can help uplift, inspire, and encourage each other to really live our best life. Because financial freedom for you might be something totally different for me. I am all about that self-sustaining plot of land in the tiny house where, when my kids call, I could say, I have no room for you to come over. Right. Right. I did my job. I got you to 21. Now go live your life. Leave mommy to be alone, and do what she loves best. Right. But it might look totally different for someone else that want to travel the world. And so how do we get to that point? How do we recognize, number one, because I think that's a big thing. Um, how do we recognize the value that is sitting there for us? Because it becomes really intimidating when you get to be my age. I'm 51, and you say, from the minute you say to me, school, I get trauma. I am traumatized, flashing back to what that was like for me. But when you take a look at some of these classes that are out there, the one that I did with Matthew and blockchain strategy, I was engaged. I was absolutely engaged in the content. You know why? Because I felt like that person was talking directly to me, right? Like they were going at the pace that was created just for me. And that's something that we lack in the traditional education system. Being able to access that information and go at the pace that I need to, and then be able to reach out for help if I need it, right? Without feeling judged. You can't sit in a classroom because, we all know teenagers are savages, right? Kids are savages. Can you imagine, now sitting as an adult in a classroom and asking a question because you don't know, and somebody says, well, Bitcoin, and you go, well, what's that? I mean, you do that in the Twitter space right now and you probably get kicked out, right? but this is the beauty of having so many different communities getting together and saying, hey, and like we did with the Learning Collective, there's this content that's out there, and we're passionate about helping you learn it.
So I want to hear from Will, but before we go on, I have to share just a little story about that. So in our community, we had some people that were afraid to ask questions. They were afraid of being ridiculed, of being, made fun of, or whatever that reason was. And, I didn't think about anything on that other than how can we help them out. So I created a separate chat that was designated for beginners, and and I made sure everyone knew that, hey, anything that's asked in this chat is totally open, no ridicule, no repercussions, no, nothing that could harm you or hurt you in any way. It is just open knowledge. And one of our moderators, one of our league members for Heroes, they're like, that's just the dumbest idea ever. And he explained that it's that dumb because they should feel that comfortable in our main chat. So we did away with the additional chat, and we made our main chat that safe space. You have a question you don't know the answer to, or even if it's something as simple as, what does FUD mean, right? Or what, just basic introductory questions are open in our chats, and there are people there that are willing and able to help you. And that was like an eye opener for me. Like, why am I going out of my way to create this separate space when we should be taking the initiative to tell those people that are being that way to, hold back and just share with them that, hey, you were there once too. That's where this person is where you were when you started. Instead of ridiculing them, help them, help them get better, help them grow. So anyway, a little side
No,
note.
but there's a lot of value in what you say, right? And there's a lot of value in the group learning model. So I can kind of understand that emphasis, but I don't know if you saw me. I was making some signs in the background. So one thing Twitter Space is good for is we have these emojis, right, in Twitter Spaces where we can react to what people say, and we can either applaud them or we can, like thumbs down. So I was thumbs downing on them saying, basically saying that the people should have already digested the information that they were provided, that resonated with them. And obviously, the message wasn't carrying through. So yeah, there's a lot of value in that in the group learning, because if one person has a question, typically other people are going to have a question. And if we're all learning from each other, right, and we're learning in a group setting, that's going to be a very valuable experience. But was given the thumbs down on the approach as far as ridiculing the people inside of the community, because I just think it's not a good experience.
It's not.
And right, and a lot of what we see right now in the blockchain ecosystem, because I've been around it for 3 years, but I have some experience with history, is that we still have this culture that's segmented and segregated to a certain degree.
Yep.
And siloed communities, while it's a great emphasis to build for what the community emphasis is on, I see where a lot of communities struggle out is getting outside of their inner circles and seeing what else is out there in the larger ecosystem and seeing who else may have a very similar type of project that they could either collaborate with. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying that it needs to be a higher emphasis, if that makes sense. Because that is happening to a certain degree, but it needs to be a stronger emphasis of communities. And I know some communities, like I said, they're focused on their community efforts. They want to get to a certain stage of maturity, but I believe it's a little short-sighted not to recognize that there may be someone else in another community that could be partners in, basically helping move that project forward or moving that community forward in the right direction.
Yep.
I fully agree with you. Having been around for a while, it's the tribal mentality, right? If you are XRP, you're all XRP and nothing else. If you are, and I still can't understand why Doge is even a thing, but it is. I'm sorry, still can't wrap my mind around it, but it is. But they have a very strong community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have people that are bonded over the shared ideas for whatever that particular business is structured on. And I've seen it where it has started to break down. I firmly believe, and the tagline for Queens of Crypto is collaborate to conquer. You absolutely will win when we join forces together. And so more and more in those Twitter spaces where we're seeing that open collaborative effort on sharing knowledge, especially with Moonriser, right? Like we're sitting in this room, and the question was asked, hey, what's your feedback? This is the way that I'm thinking and going. And I'm over there. I have started going with pen and paper. And I found that spot by stalking Will unashamedly, unabashedly, following him wherever he is, whenever I wake up in the morning to see what he's tuning into, right? And I am absolutely loving the idea that as business owners, as content creators, that we have these communities, that niche communities that we could tap into and learn, explore, and grow together, right? Absolutely in love with that. I want to see more of that. I want to see way more of that. I don't want to be stuck in a Discord. Discord, I have to respond via chat, right? And I'm frequently doing several things at the same time. So I'm loving more and more platforms that allow me to just plug in my headset, either be a listener or be as a speaker, and still be able to work on things, because there's so much more in this space. I don't know who thinks that you walk around wearing a hoodie all day and you just work 1 hour a day. That is not true for me. What am I doing wrong, Will? Because I'm at this stuff 12 to 15 hours a day.
Hey, I'm right there with you. We're not poker players, right? We're not professional poker players, right? We're not going around in hoodies and sunglasses. Although I have these, but these are prescription and they help reduce the screen glare. So they're a little bit better for my eyes, right? But yeah, to your point, we're not walking around in hoodies all day, working 1 hour a day, sitting at the poker tables. And I just use that reference because I used to be one of those poker players, not professionally, but semi-professionally. So yeah, I understand the relevance.
Yeah. Oh, and the fact that we're rich, like, yeah, like, right, Scott? I mean, so your project is fully launched and has done amazing things, Scott, and so have yours, Will, right? So people take a look at your profile and go, oh, mint it out. Oh, they're rolling in it. And they take a look at Scott and they go, oh, $52,000 given away. Oh, they're rolling in it. No, no.
Yeah.
Any smart business owner knows that these are the building years. This is the time that you pour any excess right back into the business so you can continue to build, scale, and grow. And I love that I've seen you understanding the temperature of the room, reading it correctly, knowing that we're evolving into a new space. You were the one that coined, for me at least, Web3 EDU. And I put that up in my Twitter bio. And I put it up there because I think this is definitely the year that is going to change the concept and the reality of what Web3 can do, the social impact it can make. And it's absolutely
Mhm.
focused on education. Before I heard anyone talking about doing any type of educational content, it was Will and I talking about it in Miami. And he's saying, hey, I'm going to be really focusing on this. So I'm so happy to see you at this point where you minted your access pass. And I'm excited to learn all that you get with it and the way you structured it for other businesses to acquire it on the blockchain for their community.
Yeah, no doubt. And thank you for the compliment and the flowers. I do appreciate that. I've learned a lot since Miami. So over the last 6 months, I've really learned a lot. And what I've learned primarily has come through conversations with other people, where we've been having, as an industry, just a general characterization. But I don't like to put people, in a box per se, but just a general characterization of the landscape and the environment of the ecosystem is we're having the very same recycled conversations for the last 6 months, if not longer, with very little action behind it. And then there's no real strong evidence of action being put behind the conversation we're having. Like, yeah, we need to fix this. Yeah, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. But where's the action, right? I'm a person of action. In my corporate life, I was always put myself in a position of being a bottom line contributor to the business, whatever business or company that I worked for. So that's a very important emphasis to me. So just kind of taking that and transcending that into this ecosystem, um, yeah, let's stop talking about it and let's go do something about it, right? So that's the inspiration, really, for what we have here at Kingfishers Media. And we're not done with the Mint yet, by the way. The Mint is still open until 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So we're still minting live on the blockchain. We're doing not a cross-chain mint, but we're doing a multi-chain mint where we're minting on 2 different blockchains, both Ethereum and Polygon. We understand that some people prefer Ethereum and other people prefer Polygon. We also mix in to the equation a fiat option as well for those people who may not have digital currency at their avail, or they may not be into the ecosystem yet, but they want an entry point to get into the ecosystem. So that's just a little bit of what's going on with our Mint, but I can share in greater detail if you want me to a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the whole thing about what is being talked about here, things being said, no action being taken, or actions getting started to be taken, but nothing happening. I think a lot plays into that with, the legitimacy of the people that are involved. We've seen how many projects and project leads just disappear off the face of the map, right? The market kind of went sideways or south, and they're like, okay, that's it, I'm out, and they're done. We've seen that. We've seen that quite a bit. We've been in this space for a long time, and you know, yeah, things have been tough for us. I'd love to have taken a paycheck, but I find myself consistently putting money out of pocket into the project to keep it going, to make sure that we're developing and growing. And we are collaborating. We've built partnerships with a lot of other great projects, such as Guardian Token, Everrise, Brew Labs, the Pocket Cows, right? Crypto Rejects. So we do have affiliations and partnerships that we are working together with these other projects to grow together and educate. I mean, that is something that from day one, we wanted to have an education platform. Our V1 white paper going back almost 2 years ago now had education as a primary benefit of our project. And that it was in a means of a wide variety of things, from what we're working on with, MNFT, NOLA, to, just basic blockchain stuff. And, the whole thing about the competition, the competitive, edge, or whatever you want to call it. I think, right now, or even at any point in time, in Web3 at least, it shouldn't be that tribal us versus them. It should be us working with them. And, what can we gain by doing so? What do they gain by doing so? And we've always opened our doors to a lot of projects. And in fact, our YouTube channel was a natural progression from Twitter Spaces, where we would have on a weekly basis, we invited other projects to come on and share what they're building, what they're doing with our community, and with anyone else that wanted to join. And we still do that on YouTube. Haven't done it recently, but we're going to get back to it. And, the whole idea there is, there's a lot of great developers out there. There's a lot of great business people out there. There's a lot of great people in Web3 alone that are doing some pretty awesome stuff that, people that are just in our community that are only really invested in heroes. I mean, they need to have their eyes opened and see what else is out there, right? Or maybe somebody that pops into the space because they see that there's, 30, 40 people in the Twitter space, or maybe they came across our tweet that we were having a YouTube broadcast. They pop in and they start listening, and they get enlightened just a little bit that, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe I should check that out. Those are all things that we look to do, is to help open people's eyes to what else is getting done, what else is possible, as well as, diversification. I mean, that's something that I've touted from day one is, smart investing is diversifying so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And we've seen people that have done that haven't done well. We've seen people that diversified by blindly investing and, didn't do well. And we've seen people ape into projects because, someone said, hey, this is going to the moon and it's already peaked out, right? And then they just get wrecked. We've seen a lot of things. And, our goal is to help people understand how the market works. With every pump, there's a little bit of a retraction. You got to watch for that. If you feel and believe in the project that it's going to keep going, we help you figure out how and when, the right times are to invest in that. Or maybe it's not a good thing to invest in. It really depends on the business model itself. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of education that can be said and gone into that will that will help you succeed. And I am just ranting, guys. You need to step
No, it's okay. No, I resonate. No. I'm extracting value from the conversation here and what you're saying, right? So that I can understand your focus. But I'll tell you what. There's a lot of truth in what you're saying. And to me, at the end of the day, when we're having conversations in Twitter Spaces or otherwise, the common denominator at the end of the day was education, education, education. Yep. We need more of it. We need to educate people that aren't here yet on how they can get in and participate. And Rochelle, you had alluded to earlier in the conversation about meeting people where they're at. And we've had those conversations. That's really, truly going to be the effective approach in order to bring them in. So building off that, what I did is I went back to my brain, my think tank. I said, okay, how can we solve for this? So what we've done, and we have 8 in a series of what's here in short time will be turned into actual courses, right? We have 8 modules in print form right now in the can that essentially explain this ecosystem, and I'll give you the why here in a minute, but they explain this ecosystem in very plain language, draw relevant corollaries and relatable terms to daily activities, and then they give people, sorry, I'm tripping over my own words. They give people a contention to participate. And that, I think, for me, is the most critical element from what a lot of people or a lot of emphasis on the educational models is missing, right? Giving them that contention, giving them that why. Why should I even care? Why should I even care that you're telling me this information? And that's truly what our masterclass content is embodied of. And the reason for this is because, you know, you look out there on the mass media. Okay, we know that living long enough, Rochelle, you alluded to your age earlier. I'm 52, so I've lived over 5 decades. And what I've learned through most of my adult life is as we've gone through this natural progression of mass media and conglomerates, and I mean, I'm just going to put it plain and blunt. The media today is not representative of the media 40 or 50 years ago, because a lot of the content is slanted. A lot of the content is biased based on a particular agenda, based on position in the industry. Okay. Now, having said that, this space, this blockchain ecosystem and elements of it, like digital currencies, is how I refer to it in our courses, which we affectionately know that as cryptocurrencies, digital collectibles or digital access passes, depending on the form and function of that, which we commonly refer to as non-fungible tokens, because that's the technical term for it, right? Has a lot of stigmatization. There's a lot of information being put out there that I feel is irresponsible in the mass media and by the press, that is an inappropriate characterization of this ecosystem and what the true ethos and emphasis of this ecosystem is. Now, going back to earlier in the conversation, when we're talking about siloed communities and the culture of the ecosystem, because this has been established for over a decade, you're going to have little pockets of a culture that once was, but that's not representative of the majority of the current culture. And the current culture, for people that are tuning in to understand, is one that's gaining in maturity through time. People are evolving in their thought processes to how to address solutioning against challenges that either the technology presents or human behavior presents, to that matter, right? So at the end of the day, my fight, not just my fight, but the communities that I'm aligned with, our fight, and I'll do it as that because it's not an individual effort. And we can do more collectively than we ever could hope to accomplish individually. So the collective effort is fighting this fight of demystifying this space. Why should there be mystery surrounding it? It shouldn't. What is the ethos of blockchain? Transparency, right? Trustless. We talk about this all the time. So why can we not operate in that same fashion? So the collective mindset then matures and evolves into, okay, we're attacking and addressing the stigmatization and the mystery of this ecosystem, and we're basically stripping that all away from it. We're stripping away the technical jargon or the technical speak about how we explain this to people, because we've tried that. It's not successful. It's not a successful model. Their eyes glaze over. They look like deer staring down a car in the middle of the road, right? And to their perspective, it's like we're talking to them in a foreign language, and that truly is what it is. So by stripping all that out of the conversation and just having a conversation like you're at a tea party or maybe you're at a social gathering, right? And just explaining it in very plain, basic terms, giving people that reason why they should be participating, I feel is a very strong model on which to build from. And so that's for the people outside of the ecosystem that aren't here yet in blockchain. However, it's also, because this is a multifaceted approach. It's just not attacking from one angle, it's attacking from multiple angles. It's also, in my opinion, a very good resource to have in your toolkit, especially if you haven't trained yourself not to talk the way we talk in our inner circles in this industry.
I think that's a fantastic point. I could tell you, for me, you stripped it away all the way down to exactly why I think we will be able to track the data from our event in New Orleans, right? It is meeting people where they're at. It is understanding that those of us that are in this rarefied space don't want to be in this rarefied space. We want to open up that bubble. But how do you do that? And that's what it comes down to, meeting people where they're at, stripping away the technical jargon, and breaking it down in bite-sized pieces that is palatable to the open public. I fully agree with you on where the media is. And this is not going to be about politics or any of that.
No,
It's simply
no.
coming down to the fact that for a very long time, we kind of just trusted, our generation trusted, um, this is what you do and this is the way you do it and this is the only way you do it. But we've been able to evolve past that thinking and recognize that there has to be a better way. And why can't it be a trustless system? Why can't it be full transparency? We just trust it because that's what we were trained to do. And as a consequence, a lot of us for our generation has really suffered for it. I could tell you that I feel like I have. And I'm fortunate enough where now I can look back and look at those past mistakes and the ignorance of not knowing and fully embrace um, learning at my age, right? Because, here in the United States, Social Security is not a guarantee for everyone. Not everyone have the book smarts. Not everyone have the capacity to want to be able to watch a chart and read it and know what their entry and exit strategy is. But that is the conversation that's being held by the media, right? The blockchain has a potential for way more than that. The blockchain has the potential to impact lives in a real and fundamental way. We're talking about from the way you learn to the way you earn to the way you live, supporting communities that take a look and understand that I don't want to go to Mars. I have no interest on building anything on Mars. None whatsoever. I have no interest in spending billions of dollars to explore Mars. Want to know why? Because there's still kids that are hungry, that are going to bed hungry. There's still people without healthcare. There's still people dying from fundamental things that we take for granted every day: clean air, clean water, right? So I have zero interest in exploring what's outside of this little world. And more, I'm looking to the blockchain to solve some of these real world problems. But how do I do that in not understanding what it really is? How do I do that when the conversation is about crypto and it's a scam and this digital money, it's make believe money by a dev? Because it's so much more than that. And this is where 2 years ago, people are looking at me like I done lost my mind when I said this is it right here. Non-fungible tokens is the way to the future because it's how we tie a real life product, service to the blockchain. I mean, to me, it's broken down as simple as that. This digital asset, this digital access pass grants you the following benefit. Now you're talking my language. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Now you're talking my
Yeah.
language. Because what
And
is my Amazon Prime membership? It's digital access, right? So now
yep.
now all of a sudden, instead of my eyes glazing over and I'm looking like that deer in headlights, I'm tuned in, right? I'm tuned in. Okay, wait a minute. What? No, what did you just say? Okay, let me follow this rabbit hole a little bit. That's what I'm talking about. So much of it has been caught up into the influencers and the people that know. You can't know anything in this. You can't, because it's changing so quickly, and you have to keep up. Yes, you're on that little ferret wheel, right? But I love being on that wheel. You know why? There is not a day that goes by that I am not learning, absorbing, and soaking up something new. And for the first time in a very long time, I am so excited for what's to come. And that's at a 51-year-old brain with ADHD, that's and probably a little bit autistic at the same time, that don't like people, that don't want to really leave my house. But I have friendships that I've never met anybody in person with the exception of you. Well, I've met Scott, and I'm in Scott's DM just as often. Hi, Megan. Right? I know his wife's name. Know his son. Know where his son is go off to college. Right? And I count him as one of my best friends. Right? I count him as my sounding board. And as we sit and explore all of the potential that it has to offer, and to continue to see great people stepping up, it gives me hope. That's what it is. It gives me hope that we can leave that lasting impact. That younger generation that has no idea where it's going. My twins are 21, and I had this conversation with Hope, and she was like, I need to learn a little bit more, Mom. Now she's open to learning a little bit more, because you know what I did? I changed the language, Will. I changed the language on how I talk to her about things that are occurring on the blockchain. And now I spark that interest. And I've been trying to do this for years. And I couldn't. I couldn't. And the minute it was DayQ, she was having a conversation with DayQ. He showed her one of the test pieces for the NFT for NOLA. And he says, well, what do you think? And she started to, oh, she's like, well, how did you create that? Well, what did you use? And now she's sparked by what can the blockchain do for her? And that's what it was. We were missing that personal element, Will, and how we capture that individual versus trying to mass market to a community.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of value which said, and just going back to earlier with the point that you just made, right? It's not necessarily a singular focus about like convincing people to participate. It's more of, what is your drive? What is your passion? What is your ambition? If finances were not a consideration, I know they're consideration for almost every person on this planet, right? They have to be. But if finances were no consideration, what is it you would be doing? What is it that you would say or categorize as your life's work or your passion for life? And that's really the ecosystem and the culture that we're building with Kingfisher's Media, right? We get to know our learners at the relational level by building relationships, quality relationships, long-lasting relationships. I say it often, and I say it proud, that the currency of the blockchain ecosystem is not any of the byproducts that have been created, like the digital currencies or the digital collectibles or the digital access passes. Sure, they have a monetary value attached to them to some degree, but the intrinsic value at the end of the day, the unmeasurables, is the relationships, and the relationship is the true currency of the blockchain ecosystem.
Oh my God, that is so well said, because I can't begin to tell you how all of this conversation is just singing in my brain right now, because it makes the difference, right? You talked about it when we were talking about NOLA, and how, oh, so you're building from a community outward level. Well, it's the same thing when we talk about learning. It's the same thing when we talk about education. It is, what is your end goal in mind? We're on episode 20, Will. And I would say, what is it, the first 12 to 15 episodes, Scott? All we talked about was mindset.
That's right.
And ask me to write a blog, bro, that was going to be an issue. I hate putting pen to paper because I've always had this nervous feeling that somebody's going to read it. They're really going to see how stupid I feel. And so, with the advance of AI, I wrote my first blog that's on MNFT right now, Depression and Finances, right? I'm so proud of that. It probably had like 5 views, Will. It had like 5 views. I don't care.
It doesn't matter though.
I looked at it.
See, this is the thing where people get caught up in the content creation aspect of it. Even though they may be passionate about it, the content creation is just go do it. Just put it out there, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be necessarily a finished product, right? It doesn't have to get a lot of views. I operate with the emphasis, and this was a philosophical approach that I've developed through focusing on education, is the reach one, teach one. Rochelle, you know this, but your audience may not know about this philosophy. And the philosophy goes a little something like this. If we can reach just one person and pour into them and teach them enough of what we know to where they can go out and replicate that and teach other people, maybe they just teach one people, but who knows? Maybe they teach 2, maybe they teach 4, maybe they teach 8. Then we start to see this exponentialization of the content of the education and of the learning of the content. So kudos to you. I give you a lot of credit. Yeah, just go do it. Put it out there. And then, so what if it gets 5 views today? That doesn't mean that 2 years from now, it's not going to get 10,000 views, because it could, very possibly, right? Especially if it's compelling enough content that it's going to resonate with a massive amount of people. So kudos to you, Rochelle.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But that to me signifies the age that we're going into and why it's important to get access to those educational tools, right? Because now you get to reimagine what you think your finances could be. You get to reimagine on what you think can be a sustainable income, right? These tools that are being offered up, if you understand the fundamentals of how the blockchain works, how it operates, how an ecosystem works, and then take a look at the tools that come with that course. See, that's the beauty of it, right? It is not just here's this dry piece of text, go read it, and have a good day, right? It is now, hey, you got questions? We've got answers. You need to tap in to further that passion that you have. We've got an ecosystem that could help support you. So it's now me being that individual in standing in the candy store going, wow, I have access to all of this. So now I'm going to learn what is most compatible for me, right? It's no longer this is all that I can have. That's the beauty of what's being offered now as content, versus what was offered before. I don't want to sit down and read a dry ass text about blockchain technology. Half the time I want to understand what you're talking about, right? But if you put it in relatable terms that I can get, and that really just it sang in my brain. Digital access is like your Amazon Prime membership. When you
Mm-hmm.
pay for that Prime membership, you get all of these benefits to go with it. And now
Mm-hmm.
you have this digital access pass. Well, what do I get with that? Well, not only do I get the learning that helps me understand this new and emerging technology, but now I get the tools and the resources to not just dip my toe in, but to dive right off of that springboard, baby, and make that dive. I
Yeah,
love it.
and I mean, going back to the kid in a candy store analogy, right? I love that analogy because that's essentially what people are going to find when they tap into our ecosystem. They're going to find choices, right? Okay, so you're not a reader. Great. We've got videos that are digestible that are no longer than, maybe the time it takes to read a few chapters in a book, right? We're looking at the video elements of this, of keeping them to a maximum of 20 minutes. But if we can get across the message and the points in less time, great, because that way it's easier to digest. And there's a lot of value in that, right? We understand how people's attention spans are in this time of age. I mean, it's very difficult even to sit down and watch a 90-minute movie these days, right? Even in the comfort of your own home, when you have access to all these choices on streaming platforms, still trying to get through a 90-minute movie, especially if you have a busy household like I do. We have 2 grandchildren who live in the household under the age of 8. You have all these distractions. You have all these divided focuses, right? So it's very difficult. For most people, it's difficult to get through one episode in a series in 45-minute time span, right? So we keep the video content to 20 minutes or less if we can help it. And and then we're going to give you other options. We're going to we already have an implementation for this. So we gamify the experience so that we make it fun, we make it interactive, we make it very engaging to capture your attention so that you have a willingness to learn. It's not like traditional educational methodology. What I feel where a lot of traditional education models fall short and where they're flawed is they want to shove all this information down your throat in hopes that you're going to retain what, 10%, maybe 15, maybe 20% at best, right? And then they want to test your assessment of your digestibility of that information. But where they don't really take it to the next level is the engaging aspect of it, the interactivity. So the content and the methodology of which we teach through the platform of Kingfisher's Media is going to be that. It's going to be engaging the people. It's going to be making it interactive. One of the plans post-mint is we're going to go curate some space in virtual environments and invite the community or the access pass holders into those environments so they can kind of learn in that way while they're learning about a neat technology that maybe they never considered before to participate in. So it's really amazing to think about what we can do. And really the only limits to all of this, especially when we're tied to blockchain technology, is our imaginations. And that's it, right? Scott, I
I,
see you pulled up the website real quick. I don't know if you want me to talk about the details of
Absolutely.
this, but go ahead,
yeah,
Rochelle.
I also wanted to say, well, please mention the business, right? Buying
Yeah,
in as a business versus buying in as an individual, because this part I really love. I want to educate my community. I want to educate those that are around me for my business. I want to make sure that they're getting the best content possible. I don't have the time or the resources to create that myself. To me, this is the value, this is the beauty of collaborating in this space, right? When you are like-minded in your approach to what things should be and how they can be, now it becomes a different conversation for MNFT to buy and hold these assets that can offer it up to their community and trust that the information being provided is 100% accurate, to trust that the content provided is going to continue to help keep my community safe. So designing your course access as well as your mint where businesses can buy in to give to their community, I absolutely love as well.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So part of my growth and my maturation into this space was learning about what a fair opportunity launch was all about. And at the end of the day, essentially the way it is that everybody in the ecosystem is given a fair opportunity to participate. It doesn't matter what level you're at in the ecosystem, whether you're a founder or whether you're a marketer or whether you're a developer or whether you're just a community member, right? It doesn't matter that. Everybody has the same opportunity to participate and everybody participates the same way. That's how I was raised in this ecosystem. And that's just taken it from back in 2017, there were a lot of initial coin offering launches where there wasn't a fair distribution of the tokens. And then the founders and the marketers and the developers probably had the lion's share of the tokens. And once the tokens reach a certain value where they could extract liquidity, what happened? They took their exit liquidity, right? And what was the community left with? Holding a bag of tokens that had almost no monetary value at the end of the day, right? So fair opportunity launches and fair opportunity participation is a far, or I would say it's a complete 180 from that focus. So the cool thing about it is it doesn't matter if you're an individual, it doesn't matter if you're a business, it doesn't matter if you're a community looking to acquire a digital access pass on behalf of your community. Everybody gets the same benefits. Everybody has the same opportunity. Even myself, as the founder of Kingfishers Media, if I want a digital access pass, I have to go out there and I have to get one, right? So that's the beauty of all this. So what we have now going on, so we're minting on the blockchain. We have an offering for Ethereum blockchain, and a lot of this is on our primary Twitter account, which is Kingfishers Media on Twitter. Or you can go, yeah, you see the Twitter feed right there, at KM, so it's Kilo Mike, Lima Lima Charlie Whiskey 3 is our handle on Twitter for Kingfishers Media. And so what is the offering? You may ask, right? Okay, Rochelle, thank you. I'm glad you asked. What is the offering? How can I participate? How can I tap in? So you want to mint on Ethereum? Great, we have an option for that. We have the official links on our Twitter, which, as you can see on the website, rolls right up into the website. We have that direct feed tied in there. Additionally, we have an option for you on the Polygon blockchain, if that is your preference on blockchain. And we know that Polygon is an extension of the Ethereum blockchain, but it is more efficient. And it is, I would say it's more cost effective if you're looking at it from that perspective, right? We also have traditional payment options available either through PayPal or through credit card, which for people who maybe digital currency isn't their primary form of how they acquire or accumulate things in this space, and they want to do it from a different way, or even if they're like a business, right, and they want to include it in their expense report, they have that opportunity and that choice to do so. So what the Access Pass offers, and Scott, if you can go back to the website real quick, I think that that first tweet you had pulled up there, showed out, that is our official banner of our Mint details, right? So you come in, you participate with us. Right now we're in public, so it's a little bit higher point of entry than when we were in the priority access phase. But even in this public phase, we feel it's a very reasonable entry point for the amount of benefits we're offering. Well, what are we offering? Well, we're offering online learning, group setting learning, or individual learning. You pick and choose which way you want to learn. We do it in print form, we do it in video form, we do it in masterclass form, and we can either do recorded masterclasses that you can learn from, or right now what we've been experimenting with leading up to the Mint is doing live learning sessions, tapping into the technology that we broadcast from, which I think is very amazing element of the way people do learn, right? So you have that. Additionally, once we get some legs under us, once we start maturing and growing, there are going to be in-person learning opportunities. So let's say, as an example, there's a conference that we're attending in your neck of the woods. We very likely would do a pop-up satellite event where we're hosting maybe a 3-hour webinar, maybe a 2-hour webinar, engaging the audience in the conversation while we're teaching, right? Whatever the topic is that we want to teach that day. And we're going to engage with that audience, interact with them. But you're going to be able to attend that, where if anybody from the outside looking in, there may be a price of admission for that, right? But because you're a Kingfisher's Media Digital Access Pass holder, don't worry about that. We got you covered. Additionally, we have community spawned initiatives. So as a community, each Access Pass represents one vote in our community. So, of course, the more passes you hold, the more votes you're going to get, right? But that's really not the emphasis of this. The emphasis of this is we're going to be reaching into the community and saying, okay, we have this opportunity to support this particular initiative. Then we're going to put it to a community vote. However many community members we have, it doesn't, whether it's 20 or 100, right? We're going to put it to a community vote, and we're going to say, should we support this? And because we have multi-signature community wallets set up for both blockchains, where we can hold a multitude of digital currencies inside of them, the community is going to have visibility of that. So we can say, okay, we want to allocate 15% of our community funds to this emphasis and this effort. The community votes on it, and at the end of the day, the community's voices are heard, and we go with what the community decides. Additionally, from that, we're going to have hosted events as well. So our own hosted events outside of maybe conferences, or outside of maybe, we're just traveling because we're doing a community outreach initiative with the localized community, and we're having a pop-up event. But we're going to plan and organize our own events around Kingfisher's Media. And we're going to invite all our digital access pass holders to come in. And the price of admission will never, never be a factor in that conversation as well. Let's see, what else? What else are you going to get? Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of benefits to what we're offering with the digital access passes. I mean, I could go on and on. A lot of it is posted there on the banner. Those are the ones that I'm passionate about. Oh, this is the compelling one too. Community outreach. So say you go out, and if you're a business, this may be a consideration for you. Or if you're a community, this may be a consideration for you. You go out, you get 5 or more, right? Then what that does is an added benefit. You enlist our team to come to your localized area, and say you're just having a barbecue in the park, right? We have a community member right now that wants to host a barbecue in the park, but they want to bring in the localized community. So what do? We mobilize, we come to your localized community, we set up shop prior to your event happening, somewhere between a week to 10 days ahead of time, right? We engage the local community, whether it's through printing flyers and banners for your event, inviting them to it, or whether it's getting into the adult education centers, hosting a one-day webinar from that emphasis. We get in the city council meetings, we get in the chambers of commerce, and we really get people to understand what this digital transformation and this transformation of finances from a centralized or a more traditional business model into a new way of doing business. We really get them to understand that process, right? which we feel is going to inspire them, it's going to excite them, and it's really going to get them to engage to come to that localized event. So that's just one of the added benefits. Another thing that we talked about yesterday in space is another benefit that we're going to reveal to the public. Right now, we're holding it inside the community. We're really going to reveal it to the community, to the sources outside of the community post Mint. So the Mint does close tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. After that, when we come back on Monday night, we're going to really explain to the community what this added benefit is. But let's just say it's a doozy. It's a doozy. And if you feel inspired to educate and teach other people, it's really going to work to your benefit.
Awesome. Well, we have been an hour and 6 minutes. We like to keep these episodes to an hour roughly, just to make sure they're manageable and not overwhelming for people that are coming in and watching them later. So why don't we first, I'd like to say, Will, at any point in time, you're more than welcome to come back and join us. But why don't we do some closing statements here and call it a night? What do you say, Rochelle?
I am up for that. I feel like we need a part 2 with Bill. There's so much to unpack.
Hey,
and I want to know. I want to know what's the secret, right? No, I want to know. So we definitely have to have you back, Will.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we can do a part 2 next week or whenever it's comfortable for you guys.
Yeah, next week sounds good because I really want to tap in about the power of that localized community. I really want to tap in on that. It's what we're pushing to do by making it all about New Orleans for our event. So I would love to make sure that we're collaborating with you and mobilizing your community in New Orleans as well, right? So yeah, we gotta have you back next week. So much time.
Well, no doubt. Well, the first thing of a call to action is going to be go mint you, or go collect one of those digital access passes, and that's going to make the conversation a lot easier. Not saying we can't have the conversation, but I'm just saying it's going to give you stronger footing in the community to have those types of conversations. Is my point. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But yeah, absolutely open to the collaboration, open to the conversation. For sure, would be more than happy to come back next week if that's what you guys want to do for episode 21. I think that's appropriate because I just turned 52 last Saturday, and so now I have 31 years of experience of how to be 21.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Perfect.
That. Let's celebrate your birthday. Celebrate.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I guess with that, these episodes have just astonished me. We have gone from everything about the mindset on, just getting in the right state of mind to proceed on your journey, to the basics of budgeting, to, credit, to even, getting your credit score up and balanced, right? We've had professionals from all walks of life join us. And for episode 20, we have Will sharing what he's building with, bringing people from that Web 2 into Web 3 and expressing the demand that's going to be there for it. So we're excited to hear more about it for next week. But with that, I think we're going to call it a night, guys.
Sounds good. It's been an absolute pleasure. Will, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us.
Amazing.
Look forward to episode 2, sir. Go Mint. Go Mint.
Go Mint now, right? You've got all the links. But one thing I want to say, I just want to extend it the other direction, because relationships are not just one-sided. The most robust and beneficial relationships we find in our lives are two-way streets. So I want to also extend the invitation back to you guys. If you guys ever want to come by our show, we're going to be broadcasting starting next week pretty early in the morning, 10 Eastern. But we feel that's a prime time for learning, right? So if you guys ever want to come by our show, you ever want to tap in, if you want to be added as a collaborator on one of our other broadcasts outside of Twitter, we can do that as well, right? Instagram works well for that. I don't know Twitch so much because I'm kind of new to Twitch, and more or less it's just creating a content library over there. Or if you want to tap into the conversation on Twitter, we'd love to have you there as well. So we'll be posting out all the official show links this upcoming week as we're kind of changing and restructuring a little bit. We've done this a few times. And so it's still an experimental process for us to see what works well and what lands well. But I feel that these new time slots we're going to be going into are going to be very beneficial, not only to the learning process, but also to growing our community.
Love
Awesome.
it. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, you have a wonderful Friday night and weekend, hopefully, and everyone at home watching, you too. We'll see you next Friday for episode 21. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.